Ricky,
How to do?
well, you certainly had a boring week.
Hardly.
I know. Well, I want to thank you for taking time to talk to me so we can put it out there for everyone because the universe was watching and yay.
Yeah, I need to first say thank you to all the quilters. I will try my darndest not to be emotional on this phone call because the outpouring of care and love and prayers and all that has been so amazing. But I know that people want to know the story, and I don't know how much of the story we will tell here. I'm trying to put some words and pictures in an upcoming newsletter. But it's been a roller coaster ride since the fire started.
Okay, so in case you've been under a rock, everyone, there was a huge fire in southern Colorado. What's it, like 110?
Well, the last report I got was 107,000 acres,
Right.
which takes it to 109, and I'm sure it has, will be the second largest wildfire in Colorado history. And to put that in perspective, when I looked at the top 10 list of wildfires, in the 10th and ninth and 8th places, it's like 30,000, 38,000, 39,000, and we're talking 107,000 plus acres. Our area that we live in here is I'm not going to say it's a poor county, but it's certainly not a rich county. And the people come here for tourism because of the beauty. Everything that's beautiful about these mountains, as far as I can see from my house, is burned.
Right. The other day you got.
Sorry, I'm jumping in. When I say my house, this is the house Justin and I live in La Veta, Colorado. We live on a mountain, or a hilltop, I should say. So we're able to look out over the whole area from the house. So that's the La Veta house. I need to clarify, we have the new house at Autumn Rock, and we have the house here in La Veta.
And while it was knocking on La Vita's door, it marched right through your backyard, literally at the ranch. And I'll just jump in. You and Justin were up in a hidey ho, and you really thought you were watching it be consumed,
Yeah. When we were out there, we were certainly watching everything and taking photos. But let me rewind the story back to the day the fire started, which was on Wednesday, June, I believe it was 27. And there was just a little puff of smoke out our kitchen window in La Veta. I had just landed in Chicago for Bernina University when Justin texted me an image going fire in the west over the mountain, probably in Forbes Park. And that was on a Wednesday afternoon. By Wednesday night, that fire was significant. The winds picked up, and on Thursday, it got so bad that the areas were being pre-evacuated. And on Thursday evening or late afternoon, Justin went out to our property at Autumn Rock because even though we're like 4 miles away from the actual fire, we're already realizing this thing could get dangerous. So Justin drove out to our property, which is a 45-minute drive on gravel roads around a mountain from where we live. And he collected all of my quilts and all of the artwork and my computers, because those really are the things that I couldn't replace. Everything else could be replaced. This is the house we just finished building in March of this year. So when he came back to La Veta, La Veta was on pre-evacuation already. This is like 28 hours later. And the mountains to the west of us, the fire had topped the ridge, and a wall of fire about 4 miles wide coming down the mountains towards La Veta. And those mountains are maybe 6 miles away. So it was just marching down towards La Veta. And those pictures were horrific and frightening beyond measure. And Justin is trying to get everything that we need to salvage in a trailer, leaving furniture and, all that other stuff behind, and making sure that our dogs are okay. So he was stressed out on Thursday night, just trying to get pre-evacuation done and get things into the trailer. So at that point, we're just thinking, okay, it's a wildfire and we have them. Everybody has them. But as they continue to work that front line to protect the town of La Veta, they bulldozed and they protected that line. So if I was the fire coming here, they protected it, and La Veta is here. What that caused is when the fire got to that line, it went north and south. It just started burning the mountains that way. And our parcel is on what's north, and Kachara, if anybody's ever visited the village of Kachara, is to the south. And so it became two fires. It became eventually what was called the North Fire and the South Fire, because it just kept growing, and it finally got put out in the middle, but it just kept going both directions. So, of course, I'm dealing with the stress of the whole thing there in Chicago, trying to teach my classes, and I managed just fine. I told my students what I was worried about, and we just went forward. There were a couple of times whenever things started to get a little dicey that I had a meltdown a couple times, and I had good people there with the Bernina family that embraced me and kept me strong. But I don't remember the exact timeline because I'm trying to do it off the top of my head, but when the fire jumped over 160 and we knew it was going to start heading to the mountain, over the mountain is our property. And we're like, can it go over a mountain? And actually it could go between a couple of the mountains. And it had a third option of going around the mountain. So there was just a lot of, can they stop it? Can they stop it? I'm going to jump forward to, there was one night, the first night, I've had 3 times, I think, that I thought the house was completely gone. And the first time was during the night that we saw it, the flames on top of the ridge. And then on Sunday night, we got a picture. I'll drop that picture in here. This picture was taken by landowners of ours standing on a ridge. They're not up on the air. It's not a drone shot. They're on a ridge by our house. And that's my house in the bottom of the picture with the fire coming down the next parcel. It's 100 yards from the house. I got that picture on Sunday night. I had just finished being kind of the MC for the final Golden Gala for Bernina's 125th celebration party. And I got that photograph, and I'm just like, it's gone. It's all going to go. And so, of course, I was leaving the next morning to finally come home. I knew I couldn't do anything from here any more than I could do from Chicago, so I opted to stay, even though it was challenging. I felt my place was to fulfill my commitment, and I wouldn't have done that if I could have helped here. But there wasn't anything I could do here except sit, and I was sitting in Chicago. So Justin was tending to matters here, and I got home on Monday, and well, on Monday morning when I woke up, Justin wanted to go out to see what might have transpired. And so on his way, he had to go a whole long way around because the roads that we would normally take to our property were all shut down due to the fire. The National Guard had come in and so forth. And so he, on Monday, is texting and telling us that he's trying to get there. He stops at the command headquarters in Walsenburg and shows them the picture from Sunday night and says, look, this is our house. Can you get the fire truck there? Is there anything that can be done? Of course, that's hours after that photograph was taken, but we just didn't have any knowledge because it's a small ranch. It's a gated community with several 40-acre parcels, of which we're one. Our parcel is called Autumn Rock, and our house is called the Rookery. The ranch is called Yellowstone Creek Ranch, but we always say Autumn Rock in referring to our 40 acres and the rock that's on the land. The house is the Rookery. So gets over onto a ridge, and I'm now in flight, and he is texting my niece, and he's found a ridge that's about 4 miles away from the fire. The fire is pretty active now, coming down into that area. But with his camera and zoom lens, he's able to see that the house is still standing. I could not believe that, 12 hours or 14 hours after that photo, that house was still standing. And so was our neighbor's house, Jose and Lisa. And so that was, of course, a great moment of joy for them. And then when I landed, I got that text, and I could not believe the house was still there. So from the airport to where Justin is watching the fire is about 2 hours, a little under 2 hours, an hour and a half if you're going by my speed. I wanted to get there. I needed to be there. So as I am now leaving the airport and I'm getting text from Justin that the ridge behind the house, or farther than the house, is going up in flames. we call the observatory, or we call the highest spot on our land the observatory. He said, the observatory is on fire. I see the fire behind Autumn Rock. I see the fire going up the Jeep Trail to an area, a meadow that we call the Hills Are Alive. All of this is now bearing down on the house, and it's a ferocious fire at this point. It's no longer a kind of a creeping fire. And by the time I've met up with Justin, smoke is completely blurred. As a matter of fact, he gives me one text. He says, I think the house just lit. There was one point where he saw fire going right where the house was. So now we have a smoke screen, and we stand on the ridge for about 2 hours taking pictures and watching. Both of us will tell you that at that point, because of days of ups and downs and worry and all of that, that we just came to the point that we were resigned that it was all going to be gone. And we didn't stand there on the ridge and weep and cry. We kind of just accepted what it was. It was horrible. It was sickening, but it was also somewhat beauty and awesome. And we felt, Justin put it perfectly, we felt like we were standing at the bedside of a loved one watching them die. Mm-hmm. And that's where you needed to be at that time of change. And so the fire crept over, the hills are alive, and we watched it march down to our neighbor Gail's house and start consuming the woods behind her house. And then we knew it was just a matter of time before we would make it down to our neighbor Scott's house. And the people that lived right below the ridge where we were, which was not a pre-evacuation area, just got the evacuation mandatory call. So when they came out, they saw us and they said, look, we just got the mandatory evacuation call. It's time to leave. And we said, yes, we'll take off. So essentially we left without, we couldn't stay long enough to watch the smoke clear to see anything. And I knew that because of the mandatory evacuation that once we left, we would never be allowed back in there for days. So we did. We left and we went home, and we pretty much just expected it to go. I clung to a 5% chance that the house was okay. And here's the two reasons I clung to that 5%. The picture we got on Sunday night showed the fire burning down the hill, but the smoke was back burning onto it. The smoke was pushing back onto that fire, which meant that it was not able to move fast, and it would be burning itself out. It would be what I would call a slow burn and a cool burn, not a ferocious monster like Armageddon. I think that fire continued to go around our house on certain levels in certain places, and I don't know exactly where that was. But I feel that because of that event that scared me so bad on Sunday night, that took away fuel from the monster that came on Monday afternoon.
Okay.
So even though the whole ranch was burned, that area had less fuel to burn. Now, there's still quite a bit of devastation, but I think that was ultimately the saving grace. So the fire... our event was on Monday afternoon about 1 o'clock, and we watched it until about 3:30. We didn't know anything for Tuesday or Wednesday, which was the 4th of July. On Thursday afternoon, we got a text message from one of the landowners who had made it in out there and had gone up and taken a video and sent me 3 pictures of our house just standing there perfectly. And his text said, unscathed. And I'm like, and now we're just looking at the pictures, and there are trees and bushes from the house, but next to the house that are not even burned. The fire did not even go consume the vegetation right up to the house. We do not believe that there was any serious mitigation done around the house. There might have been some. We have no proof or example of it because none of the trees and bushes around the house are burned. The fire went up into them, but it didn't take it up to the house. And
that was like with Jose's too, right?
And Jose lives up on a ridge, and for whatever reason, the way the fire didn't want to go up that ridge, they have more green and more vegetation. But when you look at the pictures of the entire ranch, it's just burned.
Oh no!
Around my house, and right around Jose and Lisa's house.
That picture is just like, those pictures are like, are you kidding me? And I've shown them to people and they're just like, can't believe it.
Yeah. So even though we got our notification, we got the pictures to confirm our house was okay on Thursday, I was not able to literally get into my place until Sunday morning. So almost a week later. And so most of these pictures now that we're showing are pictures that I took out on Sunday morning.
Which are amazing. And the other thing that I thought, and I asked you several times, was what about smoke damage? What about smoke damage?
Yeah. So that's been the number one question I get from everybody. Zero smoke damage. Even Justin was like, when we get on the backside of the house, I think the stucco is going to have bubbled or peeled. The house is pristine, literally. Even our Trex railing, which is kind of a manufactured plastic type product, our Trex railing is unmelted. And so when I get into the house smells like new paint and new wood. It does not have any odor of smoke at all.
So let me ask you about the little cabin, the 100 square foot cabin. Did it have a metal roof on it or something?
It had a metal roof. Yeah, it had a metal roof on it as well, but it was tucked into the trees. So when we finally got to go down there, because all of the pictures we were seeing, we could not see the cabin or the teepee area. Our teepee sits on a 24 by 36 foot wooden deck with a fire pit inside. The teepee sits on top.
Oh, is that what that rock picture is?
Yes, the round rocks that you see, that's just what's left. That's what's left of the fireplace or the fire pit there inside the teepee. But there's not a stick, there's not a teepee, there's nothing. And then the cabin, I named it the Birdie Marie, which is my granny, who I got the first sewing machine from. I named that cabin in tribute to her. It was a little 10 foot by 12 foot solid log cabin. It was beautiful.
It was adorable.
Yeah, and it had my treadle sewing machine in there. It wasn't Granny's sewing machine. It was my own little treadle, so I could sew out there if I wanted to. But it's incinerated. It's gone. And the good news is I have insurance. I may not have enough insurance to rebuild the cabin and the teepee. I don't know. I feel I have to do something to honor that spot. But it's so burned down there. The fire was so hot down there that there's no vegetation in and around that area. So it's going to be a different experience out there for a while.
Well, I'll tell you, Ricky, we were all just sickened and holding our breath. And people have lost everything. Now, have there been any lives spared or any lives taken? I don't think so.
No lives lost in this fire, which is a great blessing. Good. There's really been no serious injuries with the firemen, which is a great blessing. The latest report for me is that there's over 150 dwellings or structures that have burned entirely to the ground, and another 100 that are severely damaged. So there's been a great loss of property. We have friends that have lost their places. One of our good friends, she and her husband had a place up in what's called Middle Creek. The fire came down, that horrific fire, and miraculously their house was saved. The fire kept trying to kick back up. 2 days later, their house burned because of a kick-up fire that came and took their house. We have really numerous people that we know that have lost. And on the ranch, on Yellowstone Creek Ranch, with all of the acres and all the property owners that were out there were only 5 houses. And of those houses, 2 of them were incinerated and gone. Wow.
So what do you do now?
I've been telling people I will try to stay optimistic. I believe that right now this is like a book that you're reading, a really good book, and you come to the end of a chapter that's like a cliffhanger that is true OMG. And when you get to the end of that chapter, the thing you have to do is turn the page and start reading because it's going to be a lot better after.
Well, I know what the next chapter is.
Well, I'm glad you do because I sure don't.
Well, you're going to be Johnny Appleseed out there.
Well, and even the trees. We learned today that the trees that we had out there, they can start becoming bearing trees, meaning producing offspring.
Yeah.
When they're 4 to 6 feet tall and 20 years old, and they're not mature producing until they're 150 to 200 years old. So we lost an ancient forest that will not be rebuilt in my lifetime.
Yep.
But I do believe that I will watch miracles happen. We saw a little rabbit out there when we were by our house, and that was encouraging. Jose and Lisa saw chipmunks. We saw elk coming into the development, but they were not in the burn area. And we saw pronghorn, the antelope that are out here, but they were not in the burn area.
And you have water. You have a creek. You have a creek or something so they can get water.
Creek. Of course, the little critters can get down to get water, and down in the creek bed, not all of that was burned. So there's habitat. We enjoyed listening to the birds sing while we were out there, the short time we were there. And all I know is that I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I mean, I birthed the house that's there. I designed it. All of the finishing was stuff that I chose. It was very custom and very...
It was irreplaceable, a lot of that stuff. Totally irreplaceable.
A lot of the antique stuff that was in the house, like the wainscoting, which was 100 years old, an Egyptian market door to my studio. So that's all been spared. I mean, thank God all of that has been spared. And I think that is the happy moment, but we bought that place because of the beauty of the land.
Yeah.
And now the land, for as far as we can see in every direction, is charred and burned in trees. I appreciate everybody's words of encouragement that we will watch the miracle of rebirth, because I do believe that. I also find it eerily beautiful. So I am able to find beauty in that destruction, and it doesn't stop me from feeling like I'm probably experiencing some post-traumatic stress syndrome.
That's
because we've been on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay as upbeat and as positive as I can, but I do know that my heart hurts, and so does Justin's and my family and the people that have been out to Autumn Rock, because when I do QUILT retreats, we would go out. In the past, we would put prayer bundles around the teepee and out around the cabin, and people would put their little prayers and tie them up in the trees. Those now have ascended. But also people, the recent retreats, they would go out for lunch and see and be with the house. So a lot of my quilting friends have certainly been here and experienced this magical place, and their hearts hurt as well.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing this, and I know the story is burned in you. That came out wrong.
Yeah. But true.
And thanks for the imagery. You sent me the imagery on my phone, yesterday? It was extremely powerful. And thank you for sharing that here too. So it helps tell the story way more than words,
As we're having this chat, the fire is still going.
Yes.
This Tuesday, so this is now a week and a half after the fire started.
Yeah.
There are lines that are not contained, and it's just a horrible situation. We still cannot officially get into the ranch without escort or without permission from the National Guard. So I've been out there and I've experienced it. And once they get electricity restored and allow us back in, perhaps I'll go back out. I guess a bright side is that my schedule for the rest of the summer is insane.
It is.
Yeah, I'm gone almost all of August. I'm actually going to Ireland for a week of a photography tour, and then to England for the Festival of Quilts, and then I'll be back in Ireland for a second photography tour, and then I come home and I've got like a day before we tape in Denver, right? So we'll be taping quilt shows at the end of August. I've got a quilt retreat the 1st of September, and then a week to breathe, and then I go to Australia. And I'll be in Adelaide, and I'll be in Perth, and I'll be in Geelong. So if you guys are in any of those places, I'd love to see you. I'd love to say hi. I appreciate your outpouring of love. It's been really, really wonderful, and an experience like I will never experience again.
I can only hope.
Yes,
I can only hope.
Alex, I've been through a tornado.
That's what I was just thinking. Yeah.
My parents lost everything. Our house was destroyed. 2 years later, I was living on my own, and I had a flood in my house, so I've been flooded. 2000, I had quadruple heart bypass surgery, and here I am 18 years later. Now I've pretty much lost all of the beautiful land in the fire. Thank God the house was spared, but I know what it's like now I can say I know what it's like to go through stuff. So I will survive.
Well, you will survive, and you guys, thank God, both you guys are okay, and your neighbors are okay, and the dogs are okay, you know.
Yeah.
So I gotta smile.
Yeah.
Hey,
No, just I'm not pouty and I'm not mopey. I just have my moments, and
it's okay.
yeah,
You're gonna have X amount of breakdowns, so just start plowing through them.
for sure.
Okay, well, thanks so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, and thanks for all the imagery. Appreciate.
Thank all you guys.
Bye
Love you
bye.
all. Bye bye.